Power on.
Accessing historical database. Year 2020. The tech giants become aware of the greatest threat to their corporatist domination. An obscure science and tech podcast becomes a major factor in a peaceful open source revolt against the military Silicon Valley industrial complex. The podcast, Sovryn Tech. Its host, Dr. Brian Sovryn. The tech giants tried to stop Sovryn Tech. They can't.
Woo! Coming at you like a freight train of sanity, baby. It is the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, here with another weekly edition of the show that brings you all the latest and greatest in science and tech. Well, okay, maybe it actually gives you the most depressing and enraging, but regardless, this week I have a very special episode for you. Something very different, okay? And as you'll hear me say it when we get into that audio, if you want your science and tech news and all that, you have hundreds of episodes to go back to, and you're going to have hundreds more going forward into the years as we have been doing this for almost a decade, baby. And there is no sign of Sovryn Tech ever stopping. Too hot, too much going on, too much to talk about every single week. But speaking of too much, it really gets into what this episode is very much all about. This episode that you're about to hear, and the audio, you will notice, is different from the usual melodious sounds that come from the BDSM Studio 3. This comes from for one, I'm using my H1N. Now, if you're familiar with the Zoom H1N, this is a very pocketable, though high quality for what it is. I mean, this thing is so tiny that you can carry with you. You slap a micro SD card in it, AAA battery, and away you go. It's just a little stick of audio dynamite. The microphones on it are fantastic. It's basically the smaller version of the H6, which I also happen to have one of those, have used as studio equipment in the past. In fact, you go down the list of news networks that have been using the H6 specifically when they do field work and so on. It's a great thing. I brought the H1, and you're going to hear the voice of myself, Dr. Brian Sovryn, and of course, Ellen Sovryn, as we went on a little excursion. To call it a trip would be a disservice to what we went through. We, of course, live in the Silicon Milliard, or Ice Planet Zero, as I often call it. Of course, here in August of 2020, it doesn't feel like Ice Planet Zero. Might have at night there, but you'll hear us talk about that. We needed, and this is where we get into the too much. We needed to get away. We needed to, not like anyone was threatening our lives or anything like that. We needed to just get away from it all for a little while. And I don't mean go on some trip to, the Barbados or something like that. No. We needed to get somewhere where cell signal was practically non-existent, where, there's just nothing around for a good distance. You didn't really hear civilization. And you were just out in the middle of nowhere. There was no help to be had and no grocery store to stop at, right? And in this, now we needed to do that because she and I were both with our insane schedules. And you'll hear us talk about that a little bit when we get into the audio. The whole world is it's always insane. It's been insane as long as I've been alive, but it's been particularly insane the past few months. And we all know what that's all about, regardless of any, truth or reality around it. And so we just had to get the fuck away, get away from the screens, get away from the smartphone, get away from whatever the hell's going on, get away from other people's problems, get away from blah, blah, go down the goddamn list. We just needed to get away and take a break. And so we went away for about pretty much 3 days into the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Particularly, we went to Three Ponds Trail. And we talk about it there. It's all after the fact. Certainly I didn't announce it to anyone because then it wouldn't exactly be getting away if you knew where to find me, right? So we went to Three Ponds Trail. It was I'll say it from the onset. It was a tremendous time. You'll hear about we did some interesting testing of not only, tech, certainly no modern technology really, other than, there might be a water bottle you're going to want to hear about. But we tested out varying things because basically what I had done, and this relates to an episode that we did, I want to say this is in early April, as it relates to when COVID-19 really started kicking into gear in America. I put together bug out bags for Ellen and I to, with basically everything in it that are in them, so that if you really had to get away, and I'm not saying civilization is going to collapse. It certainly doesn't look like it right now, by any stretch. In fact, I've read some very interesting stories that basically suggest, this feels like a recession. This all feels bad, but we're going to bounce back from this really quickly because the housing market's fine and stocks are great. Believe what you will with any of that stuff. 99% of the time, I think economics is basically reading tea leaves. So at least in the world that we live in today. But, there is a comfort, and I talked about this in previous episodes of Sovryn Tech. There is a comfort in having something where you can just grab it and you can get away and you have the ability to survive, right? Well, so I devised that for Ellen and I, and we finally put these bags to the test. When I say we got away from it all, baby, we got away from it all. And as you'll hear me say throughout the audio, I think that especially as our world gets more and more interconnected, more and more, this term doesn't get used much anymore, but back when I was a kid, it was a very popular term to use, more and more high tech. It's good to test your mettle by going back to basics. You can come back, to civilization. You can come back to, your smartphone, your Bitcoin wallets, pop out your Trezor. You can come back to all of that, right? And that's fine. But it's good to remind yourself of how we got from there to here, and also to make sure that if here ever goes back to there, you can survive. And I think having at least a taste even of what that's like can help you be, more appreciative of what you have, can give you tremendous insights, which is something I don't know if we talked enough about. When Ellen and I recorded this, we were both very, very tired. It was late at night. But it was very much, to put it in, computer terms, it was like rebooting our brains because we just got away from the noise. And concentrated on the signal. And the amount of ideas that came to me while I was out there, not distracted at all and just able to purely focus. I know for Ellen, I think it was very much the same. It was a time for absolute reflection and appreciation. And, also, I think this is, in fact, I remember. Now, granted, it was only, 3 days or so, right? I remember Bill Murray, basically his relationship advice. And yes, that Bill Murray. I remember him giving relationship advice, saying, you know what? You find a gal that you think you love and you want to spend the rest of your life with. Travel the world with her. And he meant the world. Travel the world with her for a year. And if at the end of that year, you're still madly in love and together, boy, you marry her as soon as you can. And while I'm not exactly one for, marriage or anything, because frankly, there aren't enough camels in the world that are worth Ellen, if you know what I mean. No camels. but you get my point. Okay. We're keeping marriage traditional, right? All right. How many camels for her? Anyway. While I'm not one for marriage, it's also a very enjoyable thing to test one's ability to how comfortable are you in the most uncomfortable of environments. And you'll hear about some of that discomfort, not relational. I mean, Ellen and I have never had that, but the discomfort of, the nature of the world around us and kind of how we had to deal and, react to that and so on. I think you're going to find it a very interesting conversation. It is loose. It is fun. It is, I hope, informational because, again, we put a lot of things to the test. A lot of high tech, a lot of, shall we say, traditional tech, all kinds of things. And I am here to share it all with you. The show notes for this episode are going to link you to a lot of what we talked about and what we used. But this is real world stuff because a lot of what you find online is, and I know because I've tested some of it. Okay. A lot of what you find online, and you go to like some survival blog or you go to some tech blog or whatever, and really, they are just schlepping off to you, whatever has an Amazon link that they can get an affiliate commission off of. They're not schlepping you the best. They're not telling you what the best equipment is. Oh, no. Or they're not telling you what the cheapest thing is because then they don't get enough, commission or enough of commission. And I can also tell you this. Now, a lot of people know that I work in PR. And I can tell you straight up that there are a lot of writers who absolutely will not, if you were like, say I had a client or something and and they had some kind of wares that would be of interest to people. I'd say, reach out to a journalist and say, hey, well, I saw that you were interested in doing a story about X. Well, I have the best X in town. And then the journalist gets back with me and says, but does the best X in town, do they have an Amazon link? And I say, no, because they're ethical and they wouldn't sell on Amazon. Ironically, I'm going to give you Amazon links, but I assure you I make no commission off of them. I have no interest in that. I really do want to give you the best. They won't all be Amazon links though. But anyway, I just know that that's the easiest way for some people to get this stuff. Anyway, as soon as the journalist finds out there's no Amazon link, they won't run it in the story. Doesn't matter if it's the best one out there. Doesn't matter if it's the best value for whatever person, especially when, a lot of people are experiencing some very hard monetary times right now. Doesn't matter. If it doesn't have an Amazon link, they're not going to push it. And that's what I mean is that 99% of what you're seeing, online, there's so little truth and actual rigorous work done online. It's very rare. There's journalists out there that have ethics, and I'm not saying that there aren't, and I know them and some of them, and they're just wonderful, beautiful people, right? But so much, oh no. And I get it. People got to make a payday, but then what are we talking about here? We're talking about having equipment and things like this. We're talking about getting away from it all. Ultimately, whatever the impetus is for that, or whatever that takes shape as. So you're going to get as I like to say, a dose of sanity here and some reality from people who really put the stuff to the test. Now, we didn't do it for a week or a month or anything like that. Certainly, we could have considered that, gone all naked and afraid. And believe me, I would love to be, I don't think we'd be afraid, but boy, being naked as hell with Ellen in the woods. I am all about that, baby. And we might have been, well, excuse me. But I think there's a lot to take from this episode. So I'm not going to spend much more time here at the onset flapping my yap. I will be back in the next episode of Sovryn Tech. We have all kinds of tech news to talk about. Might even have a little science news to talk about. Okay. Developments, things that you can do, actionable items that you can walk away with. These things are going to happen in the next episode. Don't you worry about that. But this is a special episode. In fact, I dare say it's something as a professional podcaster, which I am, I'm a professional, meaning I have advertisers. I make money off of this. I train multi-million-dollar companies on how to do podcasting, on how to be podcast guests, how to start podcasts and so on. I am as professional a podcaster as a podcaster could possibly be professionally understand. And in doing so over the years, since I've been in this game for about 10 years now, I've listened around to other shows. A lot of them actually are more of this, kind of backwoodsman or mountain man or those kinds of, those survivalist podcasts or whatever. And I enjoy them. I mean, because, I'm on the back burner. I'm very much into all of this and have been for a huge chunk of my life. You'll hear me explain some of the reasons why when we get into the audio here. But I've never really heard this where you have two people, with this little microphone, having basically an hour and a half. I think it ends up being about an hour and a half conversation around, like what it's like being out there and what it's like really, here, this is what life is like in the woods right now, what we're doing right now, and coming live from under the stars. I'm sure someone else has done it, but this is certainly a first for me. And it was a lot of fun to do, even though, again, we were very tired, because we made these very full days, even though there was a lot of relaxation in all of it. That's part of where we got that. We're able to, reset our brains, kind of reset the bandwidth and everything. And it was really a recharge, I guess you could say, the bandwidth, even though you'd never do that with an actual modem, but you get my point. Anyway, I think you're going to enjoy this. And again, we'll get right back to, all the high end audio quality and all the news and all the developments and all the new things you can do and blah, blah, blah. We'll get to all that in the next episode. Don't you worry, but I want to have fun with this one. So what I'm going to do is we'll jump to a sponsor here. And then when it comes back in, we're going an hour and a half live, or well, it was kind of live when it was recorded anyway, right? But live from the White Mountains, the backwoods. And I mean, with no electricity to be found. All right. In New Hampshire, Brian Sovryn, Ellen Sovryn, great time. And I'll come back with some closing comments at the end. So I won't say I'll see you on the other side here, but I'll see you on the other side of this conversation. Woo! Hey, is Sovryn Tech not enough for you? Well, let me tell you about something you'll never get enough of. No, I mean it. We're talking about a radio show and podcast that goes all night long, 7 nights a week, 3 hours a night, 365 days a year, and has been going since the early aughts, baby. I am talking about none other than Free Talk Live. It's the show you control. That's right. It's an open phones call-in show that is ready for you. And if you're worried that your voice isn't going to get heard, don't be. We are talking about the only libertarian radio show stateside. And not only that, it's also the number 26 talk show in the United States. Start listening now and go ahead and hit that massive back catalog at freetalklive.com. The Golden Stallion guarantees a good time, and you might even find some episodes with me on them when you do. That's freetalklive.com, and we thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Let's get back to the show. So today, you are getting an episode unlike any other episode of Sovryn Tech. This is being recorded in the Three Ponds Shelter. And so that means we are in the great outdoors of Ice Planet Zero, that being New Hampshire. And when I say we, of course it is I, and the indomitable, well, wait, maybe not indomitable, but incomparable, that's for sure. Ineffable, oh yes. Ellen Sovryn. And this is an episode, this is an actual episode of Sovryn Tech, very different fare than what you get most of the time. Because there's no real tech news here. There's no real science news. Who knows what we might end up talking about. But I also think that it's incredibly relevant to everything I just said. And I can't help but think of, in fact, you're right now, Ellen, you are looking quite fetching in the... So, all right, wait a second. So, folks, if you want to hear your latest tech news, science news, and all that, like the show normally brings, trust me, you've got hundreds, literally hundreds and hundreds, almost 10 years of episodes to go back to. Go for it and check those out. This one is going to be something special. Next week, we'll be right back into, your latest tech news and privacy and security and all that. But now Ellen is looking very fetching. And welcome to the show, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And I am assuming you're talking about this Starfleet hoodie that you gave to me?
Exactly, yes. You look quite fetching in this. Myself, I'm wearing... am I wearing underwear? Oh, I do have underwear on.
You do fortunately have underwear.
All right,
no pants.
I have underwear. No pants, nothing else. I have underwear.
And a Metroid t-shirt.
Yeah, I have a Super Metroid and that I've cut off into a muscle shirt. And... Anyway, so I'm not looking as fetching as
well,
Ellen
it depends
is.
upon your perspective.
I suppose that's true. But in any case, so Ellen is wearing the Starfleet quasi-uniform that I gave her some years ago. An outfit that you can find pictures of me wearing often, actually, back in the day. In fact, there used to be stories around town of where, like I'd stop at a gas station and everybody would kind of call me Starfleet in this thing. Anyway, of course, a lot of that comes from the fact that, and you are too, Ellen, we're just massive Star Trek fans. I mean, we're really, really big fans.
Yeah, through and through. I mean, real Star Trek.
Yeah. Oh, we could talk about that. Look, folks, we're going to get into some things here, okay? Some important things that are relevant to today, right now. But we could talk about, and who knows what might happen here. You watched the first episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. I have not seen this yet. I know Rob saw it too, but you have seen this.
I got absolutely suckered into it.
It was free on YouTube, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so one of the things over the years growing up that I always loved is when in like Deep Space Nine or Next Generation, they talk about survival training that they went through.
They always talk about it, but
and
you hear some like gruesome mentions of going through the Australian desert or something. But
right.
Yeah, you never actually get to see or experience what that survival training is like.
Yeah. Well, it's something that's appealed to me since I was a little guy, because I've been watching Star Trek my whole life. And I always wondered, what is that like? I mean, is it like in Star Trek V when Spock breaks out this little machine that somehow makes the perfect marshmallow? Are they heating the rocks with phasers? Like, what is it really? Do they really learn what it's like to go from basically almost nothing, with the barest of equipment, to something that, to where, you've got a fire, you've got lodging, whatever, and you're eating and surviving, etc. So I've always been really fascinated by that. Kind of turned me into a bit of an outdoorsman, believe it or not. And this is the part that I think people would be kind of surprised by. I've had an obsession in my life for a long time. Like, I love the concept of, like, being a mountain man. Really. I like that a lot. And something that... Anyway, this is stuff, of course, when I was in the military, a lot of this was part and parcel of training as far as that goes. But as far as what all of this really gets down to today, A, I enjoy this. B, I need this. And I think you do too, Ellen. I think you needed this, like a weekend. We've been, what are we out here, 2 nights?
Yeah, this is our second night.
Our second night, and last night we slept literally under the stars. There was no tent, now we're under like the shelter that they, that varying...
I think the Boy Scouts built it.
The Boy Scouts built this?
Yeah, like back in the 20s, sometime around then. Yeah,
I think there's like an Appalachian Trail organization or something that like maintains a lot of these, though.
Yeah.
Boy Scouts. D.C. Beard, the guy that basically started the Boy Scouts or who copied it from Britain and brought it to America. Man, I have read like almost all of his books. Big fan of D.C. Beard. Anyway, C. I went A and B, enjoying this, needing to do it. We'll talk about that. But C, we're kind of testing some things out this weekend.
Yeah, I suppose it is an experiment. There's also an alternate purpose for this. I mean, you told me that this was part of my birthday present.
Well, that's true, yes. And, of course, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Yeah, well, we've talked about doing this all summer, and basically why we've talked, part of the reason we've talked about doing this, I mean, we did this last year too, where we did an overnighter in something smaller than this. What was it? Was that Mount Langdon?
Yes, yeah, and that was a little different because we didn't have all of the gear that we have now.
Right.
We didn't have exactly a purpose for doing that besides just wanting to go spend a night in the wilderness.
Yeah, exactly. So, but now the purpose here is to that part C of the whole thing, which is, when COVID-19 like picked up in America, okay, in the United States, in late March. In fact, I did a whole episode by request of the listeners. I did a whole episode where I broke down, okay, what is a very basic, like pack? What in your military experience would you do? And I mean, they're basically asking me survival scenarios, right? Now, it so inspired me, and I'll admit, at the time, I was like, wow, this shit's really crumbling fast. And so I felt a real compulsion to put together, basically, bug out bags for you and I, with varying, equipment in them.
Which means, like, if you need to bug out really quickly, you just grab these bags and go.
Right. Now, in that episode of Sovryn Tech, and I'll link to it in the show notes, there's going to be a lot of links in the show notes for this episode that we're doing, because I'm not going to remember all of the model numbers of things that we have in these packs. But I want you to be able to, if you want them, I want to make sure you know which ones to grab. But this, really, we're testing out, okay, all the equipment that we put into these packs, and can you really, like, if you needed to, I mean, granted, we're only doing 2 days, and so we're able to bring food for that sort of thing, but could we really, survive in that, under those auspices and with what we have? Just in case one felt like, holy shit, civilization's crashing, let's run. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, certainly at this stage in the game. But, I mean, there comes a time where maybe you just want to leave it all behind. You know what I mean? And just...
I know what you mean.
Ellen knows what I mean. That's part of the A and the B of the whole thing. I'm not sure, where to even start with this. I mean, should we start with I think you and I both have a great appreciation for nature and being in nature, and, it just feels good.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there are different experiences that you can have out in nature that you can't have anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I just love, the peace and quiet and not hearing cars driving by.
Yeah.
I think that has such a subconscious impact. Well, sometimes it can be conscious if it becomes too noisy, but just making you feel more scatterbrained, less able to focus, less able to relax.
Yeah.
But out in nature, like, all we're hearing right now is the crackling of the fire and crickets and maybe some frogs.
Yeah.
It's beautiful and it's so peaceful. It feels like a dream.
I'm reminded, so the last tech company that I worked for, I would often go into, and this is like 10 years ago, I was kind of like the guy that they counted on, and so I'd show up on weekends and everything. And there was one time where I went in there, and usually everything was already on and running and things were running. But I think we had just gotten done with like an ISO review or something along those lines. So everything was off. And I was so used to the background hum in this building that when it wasn't there, it was shocking. Like my mind was just anticipating it and waiting for it, and it just wasn't there. And these are the things that we don't realize, but I mean, I consciously, I had no idea. I stopped hearing it years previous, like it was just always there. You didn't know it was, it was there until it was gone. And I think that's very much an allegory of, or analogous, I should say, to when you come out into nature, like suddenly you can think again. I mean, like there's so much background noise that's just not a part of the program anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's part of civilization in general. There's
Right.
always some sort of noise that's keeping you from thinking very clearly. But when you're finally out here, you realize this is what it feels like. This is normal.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now, folks, I mean, like I said, you're going to hear some sounds. You might hear some stuff like banging against the shelter here, and then also there's the fire crackling. There's who knows what outside. We saw a bear earlier.
Well, you did.
Or I
didn't
saw
see
it. Yeah, that was interesting.
You might hear my sleeping bag.
Yeah, you might hear a sleeping bag, or we might have to move and adjust because we got my little H1N just sitting on this. Well, actually, this is very soft. This is a little luxury for just a little luxury, not much, just a little.
Well, you made an extra trip to get this blanket.
I did.
Yeah, actually, this recorder, I think it's so funny that you brought it with us because just a few days ago, on my actual birthday...
On your actual birthday?
We went swimming at this place we call the Secret Beach.
Right.
And in the parking area, sitting on a rock was the same recording device. It was just, like, broken.
Yeah.
Not in use. Yeah. Somebody had abandoned it.
Yeah. That it is ironic. And I mean, I looked at it and I was like, well, it seemed, and it was even making a noise. But I was like, well, I already have one. I don't really have any need for, just taking that. I didn't know what the fuck it was doing there. But anyway, so folks, you're not getting your usual audio quality also. That's important to bring up, I suppose. But if you hear a bunch of strange noises, people got to adjust. People got to relax. We're going to be here for a little bit. So anyway, yeah, I guess I'm wondering where to start because we're going to talk about what is in the packs and what we tested.
Sorry, I just caught sight of the moon. Oh. And it's so beautiful. It's like a perfect crescent. Oh, and it's just hanging over the ridge of the mountains.
Yeah. See, this is the thing. Like New Hampshire, so fucking gorgeous. I mean, granted, that's the moon, but like, there's not so much light pollution, right? Even
not this far up north.
Yeah. Amazing. So we've had some fun. And really, all right, I guess I want to start with this. I want to start with part B, the need for this. You've had an insane school schedule.
Yeah, I've basically been taking a class for the last 6 weeks and finally finished.
Yeah, I mean, grueling pace for the complexity, I think, of the subject that you're dealing with.
Yes, yeah.
So, so there's that. And then my schedule in general, my work schedule has just been insane. And so we both really needed okay, now, and I don't think people understand what I mean when I say insane, but whatever.
You are working most hours of the day.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
But additionally, because of the COVID-19 restrictions, we haven't really... we don't go outside that much. We go out in our yard to walk the cat.
Yeah,
but there's nowhere to go really.
Yeah, because stuff's closed.
Right.
Yeah, I mean we do get to go to the gym still. We get to do these things, but yeah, no, that's how things are, and a lot of that stuff is very much out of our control. But yeah, I mean I think we both felt like holy shit, we just got to get away. No screens, nothing.
Yeah.
And turn off the electronics, radio silence, other than this isn't exactly
get our heads screwed on straight again.
Yeah, and just kick back. And it's been a great time. I mean, we tried swimming earlier. That didn't turn out too well, but
okay. The lake here is beautiful, but it's basically the bottom of the lake is pure slime. It's like a dense layer of mush. There is no bottom. You just sink right into it.
Yeah, and there's leeches everywhere. And
yeah. I mean, they're pretty leeches. And we saw some newts and salamanders. That was great, too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were some rocks, and we started walking into them. And then you're just like, so should I just dive right in?
Well, yeah. So the rocks were covered in slime. They were really slippery. And I should have taken that as the first hint, but I thought maybe it was just algae or something. I didn't realize there was actually the sediment that composed the entire bottom of the lake. And So usually, like, the best way to get into a lake is just to jump in instead of, like, easing yourself in and being freezing, you know. So I did. I jumped for it. And it was disgusting. I felt like I was being pulled down into the muck, and I was panicking, and I was screaming. Everyone within a 5-mile radius, I'm sure,
probably heard that.
Heard me going, I hate it. It's like...
Well, a few minutes ago, they might have been hearing that too without the "I hate it," but that's for different reasons.
Hey.
Oh, all right. Well, we can take that out if you want, but anyway. But yeah, that was, we both decided, like, okay, no, we're not swimming.
Well,
here.
you just stepped straight into it. You didn't even, like, jump and try to swim and not touch it, which is what I was doing. I didn't want to touch it.
Yeah.
But you had no problem stepping in, which is amazing to me because I've seen too many creatures burrow into that kind of muck.
Yeah, I mean, granted, like, if I feel it like that, I don't really like it either, you know? I mean, I can put on a pretty good game face about it, but... No, you know, there's no need for that. So anyway, so we did that. Now, I mean, this isn't so speaking of Three Pond Trail for a minute, I mean, like, this isn't a bad hike at all. I think it's 5 miles total. It's a loop trail.
You said the rating was moderate, but it actually feels very easy. There's only a couple spots where there's a really steep incline.
Right.
But they're brief. They're so brief.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've done it a couple times now, and it's a good sweat, and I'm certainly breathing heavy, you know, when I'm done with it. But most of it is actually very, very, very plain,
very flat.
Very flat. But it's nice. I mean, it's gorgeous. Like, I mean, the view here, and it's part of the White Mountains, right? And
yeah, it's part of the Appalachian Trail.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, stunning little place. This is our first time here, yeah. You haven't been here before.
It is our first time here.
Okay.
There's so many places to go along the Appalachian Trail in New Hampshire that you can, you know, go to a different place every year and still never get to all of them.
Yeah, it's great to be able to get away because I know some parts of the world, some parts even America, like you know, you're in for a long drive to try and get away from it all. But anyway, yeah, no, this is pretty, and so they have, like we said, they have these little lodgings, you know, and they're basically glorified lean-tos that you can stay in at various mountains. They're well, you know, everybody has signs for them, so you know where to find them.
Yeah, and they're on the White Mountain National Forest website too.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we came here yesterday, and there were already people in the lodge or in the shelter.
Yeah, they were having a party.
Yep, they were having a good time. So we went up a little bit, just went higher up the mountain and
basically to the top of the hill.
To the top of the hill here, and just laid out our bivy sacks and started a fire, and we just slept on the ground and slept under the stars in the forest last night, which was pretty awesome. Now here's the thing. So you got to understand, like, to be able to do this sort of thing where you're going out there, like, because look, we're not bringing, you got to understand, folks. So Ellen and I, we're both, you know, basically vegetarian, plant-based, whatever. We're not bringing hot dogs, out here. We're not bringing, frankly, a bunch of processed foods, whatever, or anything like that. No s'mores. No. We're largely, I mean, you know, we have some fun with some foods, but largely we're still sticking to our, I guess you say, dietary guidelines.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I think that broke our dietary guidelines was I put too much soy sauce in our gravy.
Yeah, boy, that was salty. But that was good.
I would love talking about the food prep for this trip, but it's really not. I mean, everybody's going to do that differently. We basically just made sure we had dehydrated foods and as little liquid as possible.
Yeah, well, you have a food dehydrator to be able to do that.
Yeah, that did make it a lot easier.
Sure. But it's interesting because, like, we got here around, I guess we'll tell this bit of the story, and then we can kind of get into what it's been like using what's in the packs.
Sure.
That goes from radios and to all kinds of equipment, folks. So we're going to get into that, so stay tuned. So we get here, I don't know, around 4:35, something like that.
Yeah, we got here a little late.
Yeah.
Because Well, we found out there was one thing missing from our pack that we needed.
Ponchos.
Yeah, rain ponchos.
Rain ponchos. Well, we took care of that.
Yeah.
We did end up getting rain ponchos, which was handy. We'll explain why. So we got here around then. It takes a little over an hour to get to this part, the shelter. Maybe about an hour and a half. In fact, it was raining when we got here, so I think that slowed things down a little bit. Might even been a couple hours. Bottom line being is that daylight is fading fast, right? When we got to our spot.
I mean, the sun doesn't... You don't just see the sunset over the horizon. Like, it dips below the ridge of this giant mountain range, and then it starts getting dark around, like, 6 o'clock, 7.
Yeah. So, first order is, to quote some of those Starfleet survival skills, Captain Kirk or actually Admiral Kirk in Wrath of Khan, of course, he says, first order business, survival. And so you just dive right in to starting a fire. I mean, you wasted no time, and you start saying, okay, we're going to do division of labor. I mean, folks, understand, you are hearing the voice right now, me, of someone who went through airborne training, who who did far more than he should have in the Army. And Ellen's just taking charge. And just like, all right, you go do this and get this kind of stick. And I'm going to... And I mean, but it was brilliant. And I've seen you do this before. It's not like it's anything new to me. But, I mean, you have my complete trust in it. But, I mean, you're instantly, working on getting this fire going to town. Now, we have, like, magnesium...
the spark.
Yeah, the little rods, little magnesium rods and all. We have that stuff. But admittedly, when we had to make a stop for the ponchos, we picked up a lighter. We're like, well, it's getting late. We need to speed up the process a little bit somehow.
Yeah, and we used kindling too. We had some kindling.
Yeah, we did. We'll talk about that. Like some pre-made kind of kindling that comes like on a well, to call it on a stick would seem like crazy.
A small rectangle of wood that's been coated in resin.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So if we had our violins with us, we could tune them while we're, get the bow ready. But anyway, so
we just shaved off some resin and lit it with our lighter and
right.
We got a fire started pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, and you could say, well, starting the fire is the hard part. Maintaining the fire can be a real challenge. And in fact, it was a bit of an extra challenge because all the wood was wet. I mean, everything was fucking wet.
Not only had it been raining while we were hiking, but probably days previous too, because everything is just drenched.
Yes. Yeah, everything. The ground, everything drenched. And that's relative to, I think, to a lot of the equipment we're going to talk about. But anyway, you ended, like a pro, you ended up getting this fire going. And then we broke out the kitchen equipment, as it were, which we will talk about. It's called Solo Stove. I'll get Ellen's thoughts on it. Hers are the most important because this is the thing. Suddenly you're breaking out, like these bags of stuff and you're mixing. And I mean, there's this little 2-3 course meal getting presented before me, like in the middle of nowhere, and it's fantastic. And again, she cooked it. You got to understand, she cooked it. It's not something that like she got in the Walmart frozen aisle or something along those lines. Like it was cooked. It was done with pan and fire, folks, and it was delicious. I know you thought the soy sauce might have been a little much.
Yeah, I don't eat salt very often, so it was a little strong for me, but it was still good. It was really tasty.
No, it was very good. I mean, and me, salt. I mean, I'm Jewish, so like salt is as important as the Bible for Jews. It literally is. So, but anyway, that was great, and so we took care of that. We had the food, and then we were hoping that come the next day, the shelter would be available and we could use that. But certainly I think we would have done all right if the shelter was not and we were just at the place that we were at. But everything was open air. All we had were our 2 backpacks. We laid out our bivy sacks, like you said, and that was camp.
Yeah.
That was the place.
We had the top of the hill to ourselves.
Yeah. Now this gets into an interesting thing, and well, let's see. What else could we mention that we did? I think a lot of it this is important to bring up. You particularly. I mean, there was a lot of time spent, and this is mainly because of the wet wood. But you spent a ton of time maintaining the fire, making sure that it kept going.
Oh, yeah, it needed constant attention. And part of the reason, I think, was because our fire pit was dug into the ground.
Yeah.
Like, it was in a depression in the ground, which is safe, because you can remove all of the flammable material from around it.
Right, but you're not going to get good wind in there.
Right, the oxygen can't flow in as well.
Yeah.
As an above-ground fireplace.
Right. So that was a real challenge, keeping that fireplace going. And, I think because you and I, Ellen, we talk and, dare I say, fantasize often about, like, let's just leave it all behind. Let's get the hell out of here. We've got these amazing backpacks that are loaded and ready to go. Let's go. And, but I think a lot of people come to the conclusion that, or they, it is a conclusion for them. They're like, yeah, but you don't know what it takes to even just keep a fire going. You'll wish you were back in civilization. You'll wish this, you'll wish that, blah, 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 blah. Well, we're not leaving civilization, but I think that line of thinking runs into a very real problem. And that is that if you knew that you were going to be staying out in the woods for weeks, months, years, your entire life or whatever, you would take a lot of actions that would basically make the process of building a fire and all these other things a lot simpler. Like, I mean, you do that. The reason it's difficult in this sense is because, well, we're only spending a couple nights,
Right, like, we're not going to build a giant stone furnace or, like, build chairs for ourselves.
Which we would do in very short order if we knew we were actually going to be out forever or however long. Yeah, exactly. So I get annoyed by that when people say that sort of thing. Like, you don't know how hard it is in the woods. And it's like, well, it is hard, but you can make it easier if you know that's where you're going to be. So, but anyway, we're only out here for a couple nights.
Well, it's all about preparation. I'm a big believer in that, in anticipating what your needs are going to be and preparing for that, because that makes the event itself so much simpler.
Well, I think, and that's part of the reason we wanted to do this too. It's like, okay, let's see what equipment we think we need that we don't have, or even maybe find out what equipment is overkill. Like, what's something that we would never use, or does the solo stove actually work? Do bivy sacks, are they good enough? Depending upon the weather. All of these things. I mean, we were putting ourselves and our equipment through the paces this weekend. So
we went through the ultimate test.
Yeah. I mean, albeit short term, still. In any case, I think it's, and there's some things I can think of that need to be changed, and we'll talk about that. But are you good? You want to talk about some of this equipment? You want to get into some of that?
Sure. I mean, we could mention, first of all, like, the first thing that we did when we set up camp was, getting the fireplace ready. And one of the things that came in handy for that, that was actually essential, was the shovel/pickaxe tool.
Yeah. So on the special that it wasn't a special, it was an episode of Sovryn Tech that I did where people asked me, okay, what would you put in a basic bug out bag? This was like the first thing I said was a survival shovel. I said, you get a survival shovel because it's going to do so much for you. And
I've used it more times than I can count.
Right. And I mean, the one that we got, and like I said, folks, I'll put links in the show notes for all these. The one that we got, has so many different things on it that it can really do. Like, you can turn it into a spear. It has a flashlight built into it. It has a bunch of stuff. But anyway, so tell me about your use of this survival shovel.
Oh, well, it was really useful. Well, first of all, digging the pit, digging up rocks to put around the ring.
To make the fire pit.
Yeah.
Yep.
And also, we use it pretty much every time we go to the bathroom. It's like important part of latrine building.
Yeah, I mean, and I said that in the episode. I mean, like, that's the first thing you got to consider is you got to bury your shit, like literally. And I mean, this is just, half the reason I think shovels were ever invented. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, well, also, I mean, for men, it's so easy to urinate anywhere.
Right.
But for women, there's a little bit, you have different concerns. And I like to just, dig a little pit beforehand because it gives me more room.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, now, we did bring just like a roll of toilet paper.
Right, it's just regular toilet paper. It's not the biodegradable stuff.
Yeah, you can get some pretty specialized stuff that can get pretty interesting. I mean, there's an age-old argument, and I know, Ellen, you're looking into a lot of this different kind of stuff. Not that you're not a proctologist or anything, but...
Not yet.
Yeah, right. Soon. The fact that... And I always wondered this. Wait a minute. How did ancient humans wipe their ass?
Yeah.
What did they do,
The communal sponge or leaves or what?
Yeah, or, I mean, do they use their left hand? Or, what? It's a thing. But anyway, how was this done? And basically now, research more or less suggests that, well, no, actually, we used to squat all the time, or at least a lot. And... when we had shall we say, a healthier diet, for whatever that means, I mean, a lot of times it would just, bloop, just plops right out. There isn't some kind of crazy mess, necessarily to deal with, That's not to say that they didn't wipe somehow, but that it wasn't as big a deal as it is today, right?
Well, I guess, I mean, I feel that for people who have a very stable lifestyle, that might be true. Mm-hmm. That they have really predictable, really healthy stools. But, there's always factors like, what if, somebody's diet suddenly changes, or they eat bad food or drink bad water.
Right.
Or, what if they drink alcohol? That changes everything too.
That's true.
And these are all common experiences throughout human history.
Absolutely. And certainly drinking bad water can be a very real problem when you're out in the wild.
Oh, yeah. And we've got a solution for that, too.
We have a hell of a solution for that. And I want to talk about that first in just a second. But, yeah, those shovels, I mean, how would you rate your experience with that shovel? What problems would you see? Or did you, give me a little bit of a breakdown?
I'm just going to readjust.
I didn't think that was too comfortable.
Well, it is. It's just, sitting on my ass on this hardwood kind of hurts.
Okay. I can lay down with you if you want.
What?
All right, want to continue?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So tell me about the shovel.
So the shovel itself is actually so awesome and badass because one edge is serrated and the other's razor sharp.
Yeah, so you could saw or cut with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And on the same attachment, I guess, it also has a pickaxe. So you basically just screw and unscrew to tighten or loosen to adjust whether you want it to be a shovel or pickaxe or both.
Right.
And you can change the angle that these heads are on too. One problem that I noticed, because we were using these a lot, especially the first day we got here, setting up the fire pit. Sometimes, so it's really just this metal screw that you screw with your hand, and that's what tightens the attachments down. But it comes loose really easily unless you I don't know, have an iron grip or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if it was something I was using more long term, I'd probably lash it. I would put some kind of lashing around the metal pickaxe part that would hold the shovel more steady. Because that's what I found too. I was the shovel part isn't entirely stable. It's good. I mean, the metal's solid. I don't think it's going to fall apart at all, but it's just a little shaky.
Yeah, if you use it for too long, it does come loose.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just have to tighten it regularly.
Right. Yeah, okay. So now, so there's a shovel. So, I mean, it does the job, you'd say. Like, it works.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. The only reason we've had difficulty around here is because the ground is so dense with roots that you can't really dig into it.
Oh, it's amazing when you walk in some forests like this, and I don't think people really understand. Like, there's points when you're walking, say, on a trail, and the entire trail is moving underneath your feet. And it's like, wait, what the hell is that, you know?
It's an entire interconnected highway of roots.
Yeah, right. It's a root network that you're walking on. Like, but it's so
it's spongy, but also solid.
Yeah, and there's just so much of it. Like, it's just like you're walking on the ground. I mean, it's really it's amazing. So anyway, okay, now. So the survival shovel does the job. Certainly you find it to be a useful thing, Ellen. Like, that's something you'd have in your pack.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if that was the only thing that I could bring with me on a survival journey, I suppose that would be it.
That would be the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would be good enough, I think, I mean, not just for, like, digging a latrine or making a fire pit, but, also for protection. And It's got so many other things built into it, but I haven't even explored those yet. Like, I haven't had a need to.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, there's I think there's a more dedicated saw end. There's like a spear end for it. There's a lot there. So, I mean, admittedly, it's probably the heaviest thing in the pack. So, but good thing it's important. If it's, if it's going to take that weight, it better be worthwhile. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. And I think this is the miracle. Because and I talked about it on the COVID episode that I did. But this really works. And it is the Life Straw. I think they call it the Life Straw Go Bottle.
Yeah, I've got mine right here.
Yeah. So basically, there is now you can buy these where it's just a straw, but this is like the whole bottle, and it looks like your average water bottle you'd see somebody carrying at the gym. And what is that, like 20 ounces, something like that, you'd imagine?
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
So.
Okay.
It was made by the American Red Cross.
Right. Now, this is we didn't bring any water with us. Now, we've gone on these kinds of excursions before, and like the heaviest thing isn't a survival shovel. The heaviest thing is all the water you're fucking carrying.
Yeah.
Usually to drink. And granted, yes, you can boil water, and that's not, I mean, there's ways around that.
But boiling water just sterilizes it. It doesn't remove the sediment that's in there.
Yeah, exactly. So the Life Straw Go Bottle is amazing. Because, and this isn't an advertisement, folks, but I'd be happy to have them as a sponsor. You basically you take the water bottle, just like you imagine. Like, if there's a body of water somewhere, just scoop all the water into it.
Yeah, we got water from that mucky pond down.
Yeah, the one we were talking about swimming in.
Next to our campsite, yeah.
And then you just you screw on the top, which has the Life Straw attached to it, which has a filter in it. And of course, we have I think I have 4 or 6 replacement filters in each pack for this. Not expensive at all, folks. These Life Water Go bottles. And you just, you lift up the straw and you drink. And now you don't, it's not like a water bottle where you hold it over your head and pour it out.
Don't tip it.
Don't tip it. You just suck on it like a straw. And that's some fine water.
Yeah, it tastes just like it's been filtered out of our Brita.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. I mean, you were very, and rightfully so, you being the scientist, you were very concerned.
I was scared. I mean, unjustifiably scared, but I was nervous because I know what sort of things live in the water, all sorts of bacteria and parasites, and but this, I mean, you just have to trust the technology, and that's what I told myself.
Yeah.
That's the only way that I got over the fear of being poisoned by drinking this lake water. But The first drink just tasted like pure filtered water.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I mean, like, it's so hard to believe, because that's the thing. We just keep refilling these water bottles. We've got all the water we want. Now for cooking, we have to use, like, you still have to do the boiling water trick and all that, right?
Yeah, I did have to do that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And to sterilize water like that, I always boil it for half an hour because there are some things that are really resilient. So you can't just for reference, if anybody wants to do this out in the wild, don't just bring water to a boil and then think it's okay. You have to leave it boiling for half an hour.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but, the Life Straw, like, just totally game-changing, because you don't have to carry all that water around. You basically always have water to drink as long as the filter's good,
Yeah, it's actually amazing to not have to worry about our water supply.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even think
too.
about it. Yeah, you don't even think about it, which is incredible. And I know that's one of the things people are going to be like, well, that only comes through capitalism and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, okay, gotcha. But we're using it. So, and it works. And it's amazing. I'm in awe. Because, I mean, I remember even in the military, like, the amount of equipment that would get hauled in just to, purify, whatever muddy river we were trying to purify. And I mean, it was insane, and now you just got this bottle and away you go. Everybody should have one of these. Like, I can't even imagine the argument why you wouldn't. It's just a smart move.
Yeah, I mean, the particulate filter is a really brilliant idea to put into a water bottle.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just wonder, like, I don't think there's a way to recycle those. It just turns to waste afterwards.
Yeah.
So that is something to consider.
Well, they're washable, but the little filter, and it's like a little, I don't know, it's like the size of a quarter, but thicker. Yeah, that's the thing that just constantly goes to waste, that you just keep tossing. But everything else at the straw you can wash. But yeah.
Yeah, that's where the magic happens, at the little
right,
filter.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, it is amazing to, again, just like, because we've done this before, and you're counting like, oh, do we have enough water to drink? Do we have this? And even if you weren't worried about cooking, I mean, then that's all the easier for you. Like, you're just always going to have water to drink. Mind blowing. So that to me is an essential addition. Like, and if you just go camping, like, have one of these things. It's amazing. Any other thoughts on that, Ellen?
Yeah, no, I agree. It really saves a lot of hassle.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to, let's talk about, and this is one where maybe it didn't turn out so well. Let's talk about the bivy sack.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it.
So, for perspective, right now you are in a bivy sack, but also covered by a negative 20 degree Fahrenheit sleeping bag.
Yeah.
And look, it's August here, and earlier today it was like 85 degrees or something. It's not like, basically, we're not dealing with sub-zero temperatures by any stretch of the imagination.
You're still in your underwear.
I am still
not wearing pants.
Oh.
Hanging out in the open air.
And the fire is almost completely out. But anyway.
So I think this speaks more to the fact that I just don't produce that much body heat.
Well, everybody's different, that's true.
And my body is built in such a way as to remove excess heat very efficiently.
Yeah, so, okay, well, yeah. Well, so the bivy sack is, I mean, this is something, it rolls up. It looks like a sleeping bag, but it's really thin, okay?
Yeah, it's like a thin aluminum sleeping bag.
Right. It's not it's not a space blanket, but it's somewhat similar in concept, okay? Space blankets are just where you literally, like, throw basically aluminum foil over yourself, or foil anyway. But a bivy sack, this is very common with militaries and other organizations. You can roll it up. I mean, it's smaller than, I don't know, it's like the size of 2 or 3 Coca-Cola cans, I guess. Okay, so it rolls up really, really small. It has a reflective interior that is designed to keep your body heat in. And you can get ones with different ratings, where they're rated for 60 degrees or, 30 degrees Fahrenheit or whatever. And I mean, I got the one with the best rating that I could. I slept in it last night. I was sweating my ass off inside of it.
You were really toasty.
Yeah, and I was like taking clothes off. I mean, not that I need much impetus to do that, but I was taking clothes off while I was inside it. But you were freezing, and I felt so bad. I mean, you were really, really freezing.
Yeah, I was shivering the whole night, and I mean, it didn't help that we're laying on the ground, and the ground was cold. I mean, it wasn't freezing, obviously.
Right, but it was, I mean, it had just rained.
Maybe
it was
like
wet.
50 degrees out at night, at the coldest part of night. And if the ground was that temperature, I don't know. Anyway, I felt like all of my body heat was leaving and going into the ground.
Right. So the moral of the story here is that your results may vary with bivy sacks.
Yeah, if you're a naturally warm person that gives off lots of body heat, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But if you're like me and don't produce a lot and are often finding yourself cold, it probably won't work as well for you.
Well, let's talk about this for a minute. Because if you don't mind me, I'll edit it out if you don't want me to share it. But, we sleep together and in the same bed when we're home. And
I don't think that's news to anyone.
No. I mean, that's the least of things we do. But so this is my experience. I mean, I know how I run, but when first thing in the morning, when you're waking up, okay, even if you're completely naked, right? Your body is like, I don't mean, it's hot, and I mean temperature wise. Like I could curl up to you, and you're like, you feel like a stone that Sulu took a phaser to,
Well, that's because I am very careful when I go to bed. I've never put this into words. I've never told anyone this.
Okay.
But I have this whole procedure for how to blanket myself when I'm going to bed. Because I know that if I lay there and I'm trying to fall asleep and I don't have blankets over me the right way, then I'm going to get cold and then I'm going to have to get up and move them again. So I always make sure that I'm totally covered in at least a sheet, if not a sheet and comforter.
Okay, because, see, now that's interesting, because when I wake up, I am so cold. I feel like any body heat that I have is just gone, and
wow.
And I guess part of me was wondering that somehow, I don't know, your body heat just didn't go anywhere or whatever, and mine just exudes like no tomorrow, and that's why I was so warm in bivy sack. I don't know. I was just tossing out. It was a theory that just came to mind for me.
Well, I mean, it's a different situation in bed because we have extra insulation all the way around.
That's true.
But in the bivy sack, there's just insulation on top. The ground, I mean, I guess it could be insulating in a certain degree, but the ground itself has a temperature that is below my body temperature. Yeah,
so I guess bottom line, I think people would do well. I mean, bivy sacks aren't, well, it depends on what kind you're getting. They can be expensive, but definitely try out the bivy sack that you get. They're handy because they take no space in a backpack. I mean, they take almost none, and they're incredibly lightweight compared to a sleeping bag, which is basically a whole other thing of luggage that you're carrying around. Just test it out, folks. I think that's what you'd recommend as well, Ellen.
Yeah, and I think with the sleeping bag, you'd have kind of a similar problem unless you had extra insulation beneath you.
Right.
And some sleeping bags are thicker than others.
Yeah.
But I've also had the same experience in sleeping bags where if I'm on the bare ground, I end up freezing.
So this is where sleeping pads could come in.
Yeah. So sleeping pads could help prevent that.
Right.
Or an air mattress.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of sleeping pads are also, like, they're inflatable. Like, that's by design, and they have, like, a self-inflator in them so that you can compress them quite a bit. Yeah, so there's options. Bottom line, there's options, folks, that you could try and take advantage of as far as sleeping. But, I mean, this is important. I mean, getting a good night's sleep, that's a life-or-death situation, as much as water.
Yeah, I mean... Fortunately, since we knew we were going to be out here for a couple of days, we just took a bunch of naps today to make up for it.
See, this is a funny thing, and I've told this to people, and I've gone through basically, the real world versions of some survival training, or like the people who watch Naked and Afraid. It's like, no, stay up all fucking night, sleep during the day.
Yeah,
like what?
You'll feel much safer.
Exactly, like. I mean, I know with shows like Naked and Afraid, they do a lot of stuff for dramatization, because the most logical thing you could do, especially if you have a known timeline of, okay, I just got to survive 21 days. All right, sleep during the day, stay awake all night long, don't move around a lot. I mean, you can survive on very, very little, and like, yeah. Anyway. So, yeah, but we kind of did the same thing where it's like, okay, well, the night wasn't the most comfortable, so we'll just sleep during much of the day. Granted, if you were trying to rebuild civilization, you might not want to do that. But, if you're just, whatever, spending, a weekend out, just wanting to get away from it all, I think that's a totally, totally valid thing to do. So again, Vivisacks, test them out. See where you're at with those. Look into that, though. It's a very serious aspect to consider. We didn't do anything as far as a tent, so we're not going to cover that here. We won't get into any of that stuff. In fact, we just didn't have a tent at all. Now, that's the first time you ever slept, Raw Dog, in the out in the open like that.
That's how you said it earlier too.
Yeah, well, I might have did it on purpose here, but anyway.
Yeah, it is the first time that I've slept under the stars without any protection.
Mm-hmm. How did you like that? How did you feel about it?
I felt very vulnerable. And not to say that's entirely a bad thing. Last time we did this sort of camping trip at Mount Langdon when we stayed in the three-walled shelter, mm-hmm. I also felt that way.
Yeah.
I guess less so, but yeah, it was a very interesting experience. I don't really know how to put it into words. Vulnerable, but I mean, you could kind of see the stars through the trees. I spent a lot of the night just listening to what was around.
Yeah.
And if I couldn't sleep, I'd get up and tend to the fire. Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like it was very free and open and kind of natural.
Yeah. I always enjoy it. I think that there are very specific places where you can and can't do that sort of thing. I mean, depending upon like the insect life or the wildlife in general, where no, you really need to be like protected from what's crawling around out there.
Yeah, there's not much in the way of mosquitoes out right now.
Yeah.
Not where we are.
Right. So that's another thing where like it depends on where you're going and where you are, whether or not you can get away with not having a shelter specifically. So let's see. Okay, so moving on from that, why don't we talk about the next thing that we actually just got to test today, and I was really impressed by, and that's the radios.
Okay.
We tested the Baofeng radios. It was basically just a range test. We didn't get into setting up privacy channels or anything like that. We were just doing the range. And we probably got in some very uncertain terrain. I want to say we got like 3 miles.
3? I thought it was like 1.5.
Maybe it's 1. Well, I guess if I only walked that much, maybe it's about 1.5. It did get kind of staticky when I got back to the car.
Right. So I stayed at camp, you went to the car, and
right.
The entire distance we could hear each other. And there was a little static, but it didn't garble the speech at all. I mean, I could still perfectly understand you.
Yeah, Yeah, so I thought those worked very well. Now, the Baofeng ones, it's the UV5 something. Anyway, I'll put the link in the show notes. These are the ones, I mean, I bought an extended battery for them. They can charge with USB. I mean, like, there's a lot of options as far as they go. And, I mean, it's a very common radio that you can use, you know, and I mean, you gotta admit, it feels so cool to like use something that doesn't have like a phone bill, you know, like that doesn't have any infrastructure, you know, it's just what's in your hand and it works. It is so amazing, but it really went the distance that it needed to. And I thought it worked very, very well. And I think we're getting some dandy long legs out of here. So
spiders crawling around.
Yeah.
Nothing too dangerous, though.
No. But anyway, I thought those radios worked really, really well. I mean, I was
impressed, yeah.
Yeah. Again, and I talked about this on other shows where you could charge these, you know, with a solar charger if you really needed to. They're waterproof. I mean, the things are practically indestructible. They feel solid as a rock when you hold them in your hand. Just a brilliant piece of kit that I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want. I mean, unfortunately now, like, so we basically forced ourselves to not look at screens while we're out here because now 4G's like everywhere, you know?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's very rare that there's a spot where it doesn't work. But we didn't want to mess with that. That's why we brought the radios. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's true. I know one spot, I think, where there's no service, but I mean, that's just one spot in all of New Hampshire.
Yeah, right.
So that's saying something. But I do love the free range sort of nature of radios like that.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fun too. You know, we're just talking directly to each other. There's no middleman.
Nope. No, I mean, you know, yeah, it's not like necessarily encrypted or whatever, but there are a lot of advantages there, you know, as far as all that goes. So the radios, you'd say, are a win.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's a bigger conversation that could be had around the radios, like that has to do with getting away from a smartphone. But regardless, anyway, check out the ones I have in the show notes. If you can get your hands on them, they're just worth every penny. Let's see, what else did we end up using?
We haven't talked about the stove yet.
Oh, the Solo Stove. We do need to talk about that. Let's talk about the Solo Stove. So this is a company, a newer company, and basically they just have this really, and I mean, and this isn't uncommon, where like Stanley makes these. There's other companies that make them, where it's like an all-in-one cooking pot and dish kind of set.
Specifically for camping.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, they're always usually, you know, stainless steel and whatever else. Just about any of these, I think, will get the job done, more or less. Solo Stove is one of the newer companies involved. They have some interesting things that they bring to the table with kind of the amount of heat that their pans can handle. Actually, the handle is detached from it, like it's a separate entity that you use to like clamp down onto the Solo Stove and whatever.
Yeah, which has been super useful. You can clamp down to just about anything with that.
Right. And everything's like really packable. Like there's even a coffee pot, and you can pack. Like they offer this little mini Halcyon stove. They have a lot of different products. Basically, we used the bowls, plates, and the cooking pans, and we used the coffee pot, but we didn't make coffee.
Right.
Which this is weird for me. I haven't had coffee. Well, it's been over a day anyway. That is odd for myself. Not that I like that. But we used it for oatmeal. Yeah,
it was the only container we had that had any sort of measurements on it.
Right. Yeah, that was a nice touch. Well, I mean, Ellen, you know, you were handling all the cooking and everything. I mean, and we used a Stanley set previously.
Yeah, we had a different diet previously, too.
Oh, that's true. Right.
I think last year when we did this trip, we cooked eggs in that pan.
Oh, we did. You're
and
right.
And that was so hard to clean out. I basically had to burn it out.
Right.
But this time, yeah, we... basically, I just made, like, a sauce in the pan.
Mm-hmm.
And that was easy enough to clean out. We didn't have to burn that or anything.
Right.
But the cookware is great. I mean, you can put it over the fire, and it doesn't tarnish really quickly.
Doesn't warp or anything like that.
It doesn't warp at all.
But it's really lightweight. I mean, it's in your pack. Like, so to understand, I mean, let me explain this quick. So, because, we're just always going to be together, we kind of separate what's in what pack, like all the cookware is in yours. I think there are some other things that are particular to yours. In mine, like the chopping axe is in there. The medical kit is in there. Because we have doubles of almost everything, but there's some things where that's just not necessary and it'd be overkill.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I don't need a chopping axe.
Yeah, sure. Right. But anyway, so you have the solo stove, but you liked it. You thought it did the job. I mean, better than the Stanley, do you think, or?
Yeah, with the Stanley set, I seem to recall that handle was attached to the pot.
Yep.
And you could, like, fold it over when packing it or unfold it. But that gets super hot. Especially when you're cooking over a fire, there's not really a lot of control over the temperature.
Right.
I mean, sometimes there's flames right next to the pot. Sometimes it's just charcoal or, like burning embers. We're fortunate enough at this campsite that we're currently at to have a sort of metal grill to go over it, but we didn't have that last night at our other campsite.
Yeah.
So the removable handle was super handy because, like, I was able to leave things literally in the fire pit.
Right.
And grab them out with that.
Yeah, because the handle was cool, so it didn't matter what the pot was.
Right, as long as your hand could withstand the temperature where you're reaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we didn't get to, like, test out the coffee pot for coffee itself. That was my call, because we could have picked some up, and I didn't.
Yeah, you said no repeatedly, and I was quite impressed.
Yeah, I got to get off of it. And again, that speaks more to why we're even doing this, because I just, like... The modern world
requires a caffeine addiction.
Yes, it does. It is. And in fact, an old friend of mine said this to me, like 8 years ago. He said, coffee is the drink of a slave species. And, oh man, like that just hit me like a ton of bricks when he said it. But yeah, I wanted to get away, and that included getting away from caffeine, frankly. This weekend. So I'll probably get back on it, but at some point my schedule will slow down just a little bit to where maybe I'll feel like, okay, now I can like reset my body to where it doesn't rely upon coffee, because you need a week or two to really make that happen, I think.
So how are you feeling on day 2 of no coffee?
Well, granted, like this podcast episode that we're recording, I mean, I feel pretty good. I mean, we've napped a lot, though,
Yeah, that's true.
But, like, this isn't I'm bringing my A game here to this podcast, but also it's a very relaxed podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we're just about ready to go to sleep.
Right, exactly. And I don't have to, like, remember what you could do with Fortran right now, so... I don't exactly need coffee, which is part of the reason I was like confident in not bringing it. But it would have been interesting to see how the solo stove would have handled that. But overall, you thought that really did it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have handled coffee just the same as it did our oatmeal.
Sure.
Which was really well.
Oh, it was delicious.
The coffee pot, that does have handles that don't attach or don't detach.
Right.
So that does make it a little more difficult, but You can like slide a stick or some other thing. You could even like use the detachable handle from the pot itself.
Right.
To grab that out of the fire if you have to put it there, or even over the fire.
Yeah, and so what's nice too is, and we didn't use this, there's like a little metal shield set up. And again, the kind of the main selling point with the Solo Stove is how much you can do with it being so lightweight. The little shield setup will basically let you just put in a bunch of little sticks, get a fire going, and you can set the pots right on top of it. The coffee pot actually is also the storage container for this little Halcyon stove, which a Halcyon stove is basically like a mini stove that operates. It's like the things you see on the bottom of buffet plates.
Yeah, you put some kerosene in it.
Right. Yeah, in this case, you toss in whatever kind of alcohol or whatever, and it will, it'll cook. So it is a very nice compact package for all of this. Is this something let's say that civilization collapsed? I mean, how essential do you feel the Solo Stove is? Are you really glad you have that?
I am. I'm very glad that we have that.
Mm-hmm.
I think cooking would be so much more difficult if we didn't have it. I don't even know what we'd do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, basically you'd have to hunt, or fish or whatever, and
whatever you cook would have to be on a stick.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. And so, yeah, this is something I don't think people think about. And, something we haven't talked about with these packs is that we kind of learned a lesson that, it doesn't fit very well on you.
Yeah, that could be a function of me not knowing how to wear it right,
mm-hmm.
or the weight distribution of the pack, or just the fact that it weighed so much.
Right.
But yeah, it does kind of squeeze my shoulders in an uncomfortable way.
Yeah, I think we really need a real hiking pack. So these are Molly packs. This is standard stuff that I would go however many miles, in Afghanistan with. As to where, you have really professional hiking packs that have these full-on aluminum frames on them to help displace the weight and everything. And I think basically we're at that point that's what we need to go with. And that doing something, even if it's a Molly backpack like that's not enough, or it's not the right trick. But the point I was going to mention is that that fire is gorgeous. Nice work.
Yeah, thanks. You too. It's great when suddenly it just bursts into flames, and the flames are 3 feet tall.
Man, reminds me of back home with my dad. That means hell, but not saying my dad is Satan, but then I'm also not denying it. Okay, so the problem with we were talking about problems with the pack. Oh, right. No. Okay, so this is the thing, is that I don't think people get this, that when you hear hikers who are really into hiking, especially people that do the Appalachian Trail and whatever, when you hear them, or you read on social media or in a blog post or something where they say, and this shaved off 0.3 ounces, they're not kidding around. That matters. Every ounce of weight, not even ounce, decimal point of an ounce of weight that you can shave off is life or death for them.
Well, it does add up.
Yeah.
Over every item that they carry in their pack.
Right. I mean, and I was being conscious of that when I was putting this together. The chopping axe that I got is a Fisker's chopping axe, which is largely plastic. It's not a wood handle. I mean, and the reason I did that is because, a standard chopping axe weighs a ton by comparison. So, there's logic, in play here. There are a lot of things like that where I try to be very conscious of how much does it weigh. But then there's some things where, look, you just got to live with it, kind of like the survival shovels. So the Solo Stove, that worked. And yeah, again, I don't think people think about it. That what do you do when you don't have pots and pans? you're kind of screwed as far as cooking, unless you're going to put it on a stick.
Yeah, roasted on a spit over the ceremonial fire.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Okay, so let's see. What other piece of kit? Something, that I don't want to... people may call me a hypocrite on this, but no. Considering what was going on and severity of what I was thinking about, and for a bunch of other reasons, I did decide to include a knife. As to where before I was like, no, just go with the shovel. You got to understand, folks, is that I was trying to be really basic with the pack I was mentioning before that you could put together and just about anybody could afford. But I did end up going with a K-Bar Tanto knife, full size. And we each have one of those. Those have come in handy at varying points.
Yeah, they're so much fun to take out and practice on the surrounding wildlife.
Wow.
I'm not saying that's what I did while you were away, but maybe.
Now I know why you couldn't get to the radio quick enough. Okay. Wow.
I was too busy slicing the prickers.
I'm going to call this the Bad Vegan Podcast. The prickers. Anyway, yeah, I mean, K-Bar is always, if you are going to go with a knife, there's, in my opinion, they're not the highest end, but they're still the best in the world. Better than Gerber, better than any of them. And anyway, that we don't have to spend a whole ton of time talking about that. Flashlights. This is key. Flashlights.
They do come in handy.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's amazing how I feel like I've taken for granted so much the ability to just turn on a light and see whenever I need to see.
Absolutely.
Out in nature, you can't do that, obviously. It's just shocking to realize there are moments where you want light there, but there's nothing you can do to create it.
Yeah.
I am shocked because that to me indicates I've been so well trained by society. Just
so well conditioned.
Yeah, to expect a light switch everywhere. Talk about privilege. But these flashlights, yeah, they really are, they do, I think, meet an essential need.
Yeah, so the ones that we have, they're called Thorfire, and basically, I don't think it really matters what brand you get. You want your flashlight, if at all possible, to be waterproof and shatterproof, if you can help with that. But the essential here is that you want multiple ways of charging it. Like last night, they kept dying on us, like the flashlights. But because it has a hand crank on it, we could just start cranking it and then we'd get full power light, I mean, that just made it, in my opinion, like that was great. It's much like, it's the light version of the Life Straw bottle, where you don't have to worry about like, oh gee, are the batteries dead?
Right.
These Thorfire flashlights can also charge, they like, you can do it USB or wall socket, whatever. They also have a solar panel on them, which we set them out earlier today in the sun, and they're still going fine right now, this time of night. So, that's really the key, is to have multiple options for charging your flashlight, and if you can get them into waterproof and shockproof and all that, that's great too. Thoughts on the flashlight, Ellen?
Yeah, it's really convenient and great. I like the hand crank. Being able to like use human horsepower to create light.
Yeah, absolutely. Not too noisy. Not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's a moderate noise, but I do have one that's probably a decade older that I think is quite a few decibels louder when you crank it.
So these are quieter.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, okay. No, that's good. That's good. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have in the pack that we should mention? I did put face masks in there, but not like we use those out in the woods. But whatever. They're in there.
Chewable toothpaste tablets.
That's exactly the next one I was going to go to, because this is amazing to me that this exists. So they're by, I'm sure other companies do them, but they're by the company called Hello, which does a lot of natural tooth products, dental products. In fact, they have like a lot of the charcoal activated stuff and whatever. So, okay, so let's talk about dental hygiene while we're out here. Obviously, we brought some kind of mouthwash,
I think we have different mouthwashes.
Yeah, but none of this stuff is like, we didn't necessarily go au naturel.
Well, mine is.
Yeah, yours is natural, yes.
It's like coconut oil and there's some sort of liquid. I'm not really sure what it is, but there's no alcohol. There's some tea tree oil. Right.
Yeah, so there's that. But now, so the toothbrush itself, I got biodegradable toothbrushes. And you buy them in a set. And I just think that's a great thing for traveling and for camping because, especially if you're out for like a week or something, whatever. I mean, and when you're done, you're done. And I mean, they're made of like bamboo and whatever else. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff. But I thought that it's handy to have extra ones, and I have the little like travel cap that can go over the bristles, because you can't always rinse the thing clean super well.
Right, and it's really important when you're camping because dirt gets into everything.
Exactly, yeah. So handy. But the amazing thing is what Hello made, which are these tablets. They come in little metal containers. Usually get them, like, it'll come with 2 metal containers, his and hers, I guess, or his and his, or hers and hers, or Z's and Z's, whatever. And it is just a tablet that you put in your mouth and you chew on it, much like a Mentos or something, and then you take the toothbrush and start brushing. And I thought this is great. I mean, for a bunch of reasons. Like, so when I would travel a lot, via airplane, I'd take like dry toothpaste with me because normal toothpaste, I mean, not that wherever you land, it's probably pretty easy to get your hands on a little bottle of toothpaste even when you're traveling. But TSA is crazy about this kind of shit, right?
They've made me throw away entire tubes before.
Exactly. And so this gets right by that. And also, like, toothpaste tubes can be kind of a messy ordeal. And these, no, it's just tablets in a metal container. You pop one and away you go. I think it's genius. I don't know, what are your thoughts on the tablets?
Yeah, you said that toothpaste tubes can sometimes be a messy ordeal. I judge a lot about a person based on how messy their toothpaste tube is. Uh-huh. I mean, like, do they leave in a lot of residue around the edge so that they can only screw the cap, like, halfway on?
That's great.
Anyway, it should not be that messy. If it is, something's going on that shouldn't be.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, I think these are fine. They really simplify the toothbrushing process. I mean, it takes a lot less attention, less time.
Yeah.
And you can also do it in the dark. You're not going to miss your toothbrush when you're trying to squeeze out the toothpaste onto it.
Yeah, there's a part of that's brilliant too. Like even just in the process, and in fact, there's really like almost a way where it just seems to make more sense. But I suppose that's a bigger conversation, really, to be had. So, okay, so the toothpaste tablets from Hello, another winner?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So really, I feel like the only dud we've had is the bivy sack. Like the bivy sack is not.
Well, that's more of like a mixed results item. Mm-hmm.
That's fair. Okay.
Because it works fine for you, and probably for most people it would work just fine.
Right.
There's just, a select percentage of the population, and I think women get this reputation a lot, where, we're just cold in general.
They're cold all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that kind of stuff. Anyway, I mean, yeah.
But that depends on body type. It really does.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like a cultural meme. It's not even,
Well, I mean, there is some basis to that, like certain times of the month when your, hormones change, and your body handles heat differently. But yeah, in general, it just depends on what kind of person you are.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, well, let me ask you this, Ellen. Did you bring deodorant?
I did, but I haven't used it.
I did too. And I don't know why I know better. Like, and I know you do too. Like, you're going to get covered, the smell of fire, the smell of, like...
Yeah, I guess I just brought it out of sheer habit. Like, anytime I travel, deodorant is essential.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I guess I didn't consider how disgusting I was going to be right from the get-go. And, like, the only thing that we've been spraying on our bodies is, DEET.
Right.
to keep the mosquitoes away.
Which that's worked pretty well. But
yeah. Oh, yeah. It has.
It's done the job.
It's dangerous. Don't breathe it in.
Yeah.
Don't get it in your mouth.
Yeah.
But it's the only thing I found. And I've tried so many natural mosquito repellents. And they're just so bloodthirsty. Nothing works except the deadly stuff.
Yeah. It's, mutually assured destruction, really, I guess. Well, anyway. So dental care. Like, I mean, that's not a long-term solution by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, as far as I understand it, like, people used to use honey as toothpaste. But then, like, if you're out in the woods, where are you going to get that honey? Are you going to be like Winnie the Pooh and, shoving your hand into a tree stump and hoping to pull out something? Like, it's just not happening.
You could use various other things as toothpaste. I mean,
Chewing
some
on
people
mint.
have even known to use charcoal from the fire.
Oh,
just ashes.
Actually, yeah. Because it's all this hello shit is
activated carbon.
It's It's the activated charcoal and carbon. But
well, all the charcoal ashes is just carbon.
Yes, yeah. Right. That's see, now that's very interesting. I'm not about to go do this right now.
It would not taste the best.
No, and those coals look mighty hot. But but that I didn't even think about that. And now, I mean, like, they've basically, these natural toothpaste companies, actually, I mean, lots of them, even like Crest and others, are putting charcoal into their shit.
Yeah, it's a fad.
Right. I mean, they're sort of like letting the cat out of the bag here. Like, they're because they're like, oh, actually, you could just use charcoal.
Yeah, they're kind of backing away from the fluoride phase.
Well, to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, not entirely,
mm-hmm.
but I do think charcoal is becoming more of a popular ingredient in toothpaste.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I hope someday it does replace fluoride. And I'm not a dentist, but that's just how I feel.
Yeah. So let's see. All right. What else? Was there anything else particular that we ended up using?
We didn't use the compass.
No, we do have very solid compi. Solid compasses. We have not used those. I often just use the one on my watch. But I don't know if I need to get into a big story about my watch by any stretch. But that's something I do recommend if you're going out in the woods, and especially no cell phones, no smartphones. Wear a watch, like have that handy. I mean, I have a Casio G-Shock Pro Trek that, has a barometer, tells the temperature. It's not a smartwatch at all. It does not connect to shit, and that's how I like it. But it's solar powered and has a compass built into it. And I mean like a digital compass. It's not like something on the strap. Really, really does a great job. So that's something that you can consider as well as far as electronics go. But anyway.
Hand sanitizer?
Hand sanitizer is a handy thing, no pun intended, to have around. Something I didn't do this time that I normally do, and I know you know this. I usually bring a roll of paper towels.
Yeah, the blue ones, the shop rags.
Yeah, hardcore. And those are handy for so many. I mean, There's just a million uses.
So unnatural. I mean, I don't think that it's okay to burn those. It's just something tells me in the black smoke that comes off of them that that's not okay.
They start a fire like that. I mean, they're fantastic. They're so multi-purpose. Anyway.
Yeah, last year you had one under your hat because you're sweating so much.
That's what I mean. You can use it for so many. I mean, like, and it cleans up all kinds of messes. And I mean, like, or
they are very strong.
Sure. I mean, if you're having sex or something, I mean, there's a lot. It's amazing what you can do with those things. And I know they're unnatural, and I'm a bad environmentalist for even carrying them, probably. But oh, do I love those things? Just. It's amazing how much you can use them. And like the blue ones, you can basically like wash those and rinse those out. I mean, like they can last, beyond their just initial use, so you can
if you don't burn them.
Yeah, you can be right. You can be a little conscientious about them, I guess. So beyond that, I think that covers most of it. We did have the first aid kit, which is pretty in depth.
Yeah, it's a pretty full first aid kit.
Mm-hmm. But lightweight, incredibly lightweight.
Yeah, we went through it before we went on this trip,
mm-hmm.
and it has almost everything except for sutures.
I was just going to say the same. Yeah, exactly. So you're still going to end up like, if you need to do open heart surgery, you're going to have to use some cordage. You're going to have to use shoelaces. To tie the chest closed.
Just saying, sometimes people get gashes out in the wild that need stitches, and with this pack you couldn't do stitches, but you could, use a lot of gauze.
Yeah.
A shit ton of gauze.
Or the shoelaces. Some people are going to get that joke, but anyway. And I'm going to leave it at that. But. So, but that's an important thing too. We went through quite a bit of good paracord. We went through quite a bit of rope.
Yeah. We didn't have such good luck with that rope at first. But
not at night when you can't see what's going on and it's black, even though it has reflective linen on it, or fibers.
Well, we had a few bad throws.
A few bad throws. It was interesting, and spent a good chunk of today, nodding, and that was fun.
Well, we did get our food hung up in a tree. I think it was maybe 11 feet up.
You're supposed to do 12. We were off.
Yeah.
That's probably why that bear came. It was.
Well, tell us about the bear, because I didn't see it. I was facing the other direction.
Well, you heard it, though. You did hear it.
Yeah, and weirdly, my back fell over at the same time that it went trampling through the woods. So I heard both noises.
Right. Yeah, so all I did is I heard, here's the thing. When you're in the woods, especially if it's like windy in any way or if it's raining, you're hearing a million things.
Yeah, there's needles falling on other leaves and raindrops and birds and branches falling out of trees and hitting the ground. Right,
none of which is any creature coming your way. It's nothing like that. And so a lot of people, that's a hump they have to get over. Is you have to recognize that a lot of the sounds that you're hearing, even if it sounds like somebody maybe like creeping up on you or something along those lines, it's not, and that the sound of a animal or something coming towards you is very, very unique. You will absolutely know when it's that. And I heard like the sound of something walking kind of our way. And I don't know if it was, frankly, it might have even been when the bag fell over or what. Something spooked the fuck out of it, but I turned around. And it wasn't a cub, but it was a younger bear, and it just darted. It was gone. I mean, it ran off. Never to be heard or seen again.
Thankfully.
Hours and hours and hours and hours later. But I mean, like I've had black bear in my backyards in New Hampshire. It's not an uncommon sight, and often really they leave well enough alone. But I was pretty amazed to see that one there. So anyway, but it didn't get our food.
Yeah, no, it didn't get our food. And it's strange. I've always heard that, like, bears have this excellent sense of smell, and they can smell, like, a piece of fruit from a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow it didn't know that we were there, or didn't care. I'm not sure. But the fact that it got even that close it worried me a little.
Sure, yeah.
But I also know that for most wild animals, if they hear you or smell you, they'll just stay away because they don't want a confrontation.
Yeah, no, it's not worth it, especially when you're this size.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And there's two of us.
Yeah.
It's funny, I was when we first laid down to go to sleep last night, I said, if we hear a bear coming, we both stand up and scream and wave our arms at the same time.
Yeah. Well, you yell at the thing. You're like, and don't come back.
Yeah.
It was cute.
You gotta let it know how you feel.
That's right.
Emotional honesty.
Yeah, that's key to everything. So, I think we about covered. I mean, there might be some other things in the pack that we didn't really use. I mean, like for utensils, we have these like K-bar sporks, which don't leave them near the fire too long, folks. They will melt a little bit.
Well, they were made of plastic. I wasn't sure if they were made of some sort of composite or whatever, but yeah, they're just plastic, and they do melt in the flames.
Yeah.
As I found when we were trying to sterilize them.
Yeah.
But it's not just a spork. It has a pull-out serrated knife.
Right.
Which came in handy earlier when we were eating baked potatoes.
Yeah, I love these things, but I also have a K-bar, like a more traditional hobo knife that splits into 3, and I'm probably going to swap out. It's a shame because they're heavy by comparison. The hobo knife is very heavy by comparison, but
it would be easier to clean.
Yeah, I'm gonna swap them out to where it's 2 hobo knives instead of the K-bar sporks. So.
And when you're camping like this, I think cleanliness is very important. Even though you're going to feel like you're dirty all the time,
mm-hmm.
you have to make sure that you're not leaving yourself vulnerable to infections.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. Is there anything? I mean, you know, there's chargers and stuff in there as well. Like I have a solar charger and whatever in there, but a lot of that stuff's not that big of a deal, and you know, you don't need a specific model for any of that. Is there anything you wish that you had this weekend, Ellen, that wasn't in the pack?
There's only one thing. I mean,
mm-hmm.
besides the mattress pad, which is debatable, I mean,
sure.
That's not a necessary item, per
sure.
se. That's just for comfort, and you can't always guarantee comfort when you're out in the wild.
That's true.
I would have liked to have had a lantern.
Aha, lantern.
You know, flashlights are great, but they only shine light in one direction.
Yep.
And sometimes you want the light to go in all directions.
We did bring one with us last time, and I didn't bring it this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
okay.
Next time.
All right, lantern it is. But you only need 1. You don't need like 2.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, lantern. We'll remember that. I can't think of anything particular that I felt like was missing. I do get like switching out the hobo knives or the sporks, putting the hobo knives in place of the sporks and all that. I mean, maybe like you can get what are called like life tents, where it's really just it's almost like these bivy sacks. It's almost the same material. It's just designed to be like laid out as a tent instead of as a sleeping bag. I could imagine something like that. We did resolve the issue of the ponchos, which was essential because we haven't had to wear them yet, but it started raining again last night.
And you put them over our packs.
Exactly, we put it over all the equipment, and it's like, okay, well, that was perfect, you know, and it did the job. Even though most of this is water resistant or even waterproof, that's a very important thing for me.
But you can never be too careful. I mean, water leaks in to almost anything.
Yep, absolutely.
If you leave it out long enough, and we left these out all day, all night.
Yep, yeah. So I mean, I think overall it was pretty successful. I think I think most of what we tested worked. Going to replace the big pack, or we'll replace the packs themselves, not necessarily what's in them, and see what we can do about better like sleeping arrangements. And I think you're right. I think a lantern is totally on point as far as that goes. Um, Anything else you want to talk about on that?
Well, I guess I have one piece of advice that I'm glad that I followed, but it's not necessarily to do with the packs. But have really good socks. Like, have a pair that's for the hiking, and then a pair that's for, like, sleeping at night that's a little bit warmer. But, like, moisture-wicking socks, wool socks, something like that.
Yep.
It makes a huge difference.
And if you can make it happen, do waterproof boots. If you can make it happen, usually you have to go with Gore-Tex to keep them lightweight. But absolutely, yeah, great call on the socks there. That's
Oh, it's so essential. I mean, like, keeping your feet dry with good socks.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even just having a spare pair of socks. Which on this hiking trip, we didn't bring very much in the way of clothes. We had what we were wearing when we came, and then, like, a sweater and long pants, and a change of underwear.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, okay, so it was amazing, and I said this to you earlier. Like, I hadn't worn jeans in so long. It stunned me.
Yeah, not since the wintertime.
Yeah, because, I mean, partly, again, like we said, barely left the house. Or, I mean, I'm always wearing gym shorts or gym clothes of some kind, most of the time. I have fallen in love, and if I remember, I'll put these in the show notes as well. I have fallen in love with these Columbia fisherman's shorts. They don't look like swim shorts, but they kind of are. They're supposed to be, they're like the enduro of shorts, where, yeah, they're great in the water, but they're also great on land. And I love these things to death, and I wore them, and that, man, the difference between wearing those and the jeans on this trip, I need like 5 more pair of those
That's
fishing
how I
shorts.
feel about my shorts too.
Oh, they're great. They're like called Pag 3 or something. They're great. I mean, well, what's the score with your shorts?
Well, I couldn't tell you anything about like the brand or the model, but they're made out of the same material where they're kind of like swim shorts, but not really. They have a little bit of ventilation on the side, but they're like nice and airy. They allow for a lot of like breathability. And they've got a solid waistband that's adjustable. But besides that, you don't feel that they're on.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to have that breathability.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's just another thing that, again, most people don't think about.
And you don't even worry if they get wet. The water just rolls right off.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah, so, I think I want to wrap up this conversation with, we all use, I mean, even you, Ellen, we use a lot of tech in our lives, computers, smartphones, all this stuff, whatever.
Not always, in accordance with my wishes, but
exactly, same here.
we have to.
Yeah. I think it behooves the tech enthusiast to know how to live without it, or to some reasonable degree. And that is part of the challenge that I was putting on myself with this. I mean, I already knew how, but, just, okay, how can we make this really work right now? And, and it ended up being very fun. But again, I really, really think that it'd be, especially right now, when a lot of, say, like smartphones and everything else have become just privacy encroaching, to say nothing of, melting your brain, at least as far as your ability to, have any kind of focus or attention, among other things. I mean, there's a huge conversation we could have around all this. I think getting, learning these skills, having them in your repertoire is a wonderful thing. And at some point, who knows what the future holds? Who knows when it might be necessary? Or who knows when, frankly, you just need to... And when I say necessary, it doesn't mean because civilization fell apart. It could be just because, holy shit, I've got to get away from the world for a few days. and this is how to do it. It doesn't get any better than this. It doesn't get more away than this. So anyway, with that, you checking out, making sure there's nothing out there?
Yeah, just turned on my flashlight to get a good look around.
There you go, making sure. So, well, why don't we go ahead and wrap this one up?
Yeah, I think now would be a good time. All the stars are out, and
yeah, let's go take a look at the stars.
Our fire needs some rekindling.
Yeah, let's go take care of that. Anyway, Ellen, this is so much fun. I mean, the whole trip has been so much fun, but like recording this little episode I don't think I've ever heard a podcast where they did this, like where they were in like some shelter out in the mountains and like they recorded a podcast with, certainly with such an amazing woman. But
well, at least you have the unique on your side.
I'll take that. Always do on Sovryn Tech. So anyway, yeah, we'll wrap this one up, and maybe I'll have some closing thoughts here, and we'll see all of you on the other side. Maybe on the other side of the mountain. I don't know. Hey, baby, I know. You are tired of Gmail. You have had enough. Well, I have a solution for you. What I want you to do is you go to Fastmail, okay? It's fastmail.sovryntech.com. That's the URL you can use. You're going to get a discount with that. You are going to love this. This is email for email's sake. This company does nothing more. Just email, and they do it right. All the latest security technologies. You want to log into your account with your YubiKey? You can do that. Fastmail has your hookup. Very inexpensive plans. I want you to check it out. You go to fastmail.sovryntech.com. That'll get you the hookup, and it's an honor to have them as a part of Sovryn Tech. Woo! Let's get back to the show.
The Golden Stallion doing whatever he wants to do. The climax.
Baby, now how did you not enjoy that? I know you did. After the fact, we were actually having a conversation with some, with friends about our excursion. And I mean, basically, and I don't think she'll mind me quoting her. She's just in the other room. But, Ellen, when it was asked, we were talking about why we were doing this, what the idea was and what the packs were like and everything. And Ellen basically came to the conclusion that, yeah, you know what? If everything fell apart right now, we could really survive off of what is in those packs. Again, we need to get new ones. And this is something I am looking into. And if you're that interested in finding out what packs I decide to go with, feel free to ask me the question. I'll probably post it in the Telegram group. Of course, if you want to go to the Sovryn Tech Polytechnic Telegram group, which is highly active. And I love it because, I know of Telegram groups where like the person behind the group really has to be active for everyone else to be active. Oh, no. You guys, gals, and Z's, I mean, you take it and it is your place, your space, and you have all the fun and all the conversations and recommendations. It's such real world recommendations, just like we were talking about. It's such a beautiful thing to behold. And I noticed that, in fact, this is something I didn't get into after the fact, when we finally got back to civilization, as it were, when I turned my phone on, holy shit, the amount of notifications that I had. Now, I mean, I don't mind the ones from the Telegram group. I want those. Okay. But there were a lot. And that's my point, is that it was very, very active, even while I was away for so many days. Believe me, I'm not enjoying going back to the grind at all. I think Ellen even told you there. I mean, most of my waking hours, I'm working, and eventually that schedule has to give, but man's got to make the money, right? So anyway, the amount of notifications that I got, I mean, this should bring you, it's almost valuable to do what I described for this, because when you get back to civilization, okay, after going away for a bit, and you turn on that phone and you see the amount of notifications that you normally get, even on, say, a weekend, over a span of about 3 days, it should terrify you. It should make you pause and reflect. What the hell does any of that matter for? I mean, and think about how each one of those notifications, every time they come in, is an attack on your attention. It really is. You know, I mean, even frankly, even when it's Windows 10 doing it, and, you know, the little, even if you have it set for quiet hours, but the little square in the bottom right-hand side still ends up going white, you know, letting you know, hey, there's something you should be paying attention to. No, motherfucker, I should be paying attention to what's going on in my fucking head, not what's going on in the rest of the world. Concentrate on me, goddammit, right? That will shock you, I think, because I think, you know, we think of them, I mean, they just kind of compile. It's like death of 1,000 cuts, and it's the death of your attention span, right? You know, where yeah, you get a notification, you swipe it away. Yeah, you get a notification, swipe it away. See what it's like when they build up, again, even on the weekend. And I think that will shock you. And I hope that it shocks you into some kind of action, whatever that ends up looking like. If it's like we've talked about in some previous episodes, seriously reconsidering your relationship with the smartphone, great, you know, whatever, or maybe it finally causes you to hit unsubscribe on a whole ass ton of newsletters and whatever else that you've never read, you'll never read, and you don't really care about, or, you know, emails with, I don't know, whatever deals from whatever companies, whatever, however it takes shape for you. I hope it takes some kind of shape. I hope it makes you reconsider and also think about why, you know, Ellen and I ultimately felt like we had to go and do this. You know, I mean, it's a pleasure and a joy in and of itself. And again, it's a, you know, that this kind of bushcraft is almost a hobby of mine. In fact, something I didn't mention, but I did mention in the original, and I will link to it in the show notes, because I did not mention it in the audio that we just had, but I'll link to the episode that I originally did with the very basic pack from, you know, when COVID-19 started. And one of the things that I mentioned in there, of course, is the book, The Art of Shenku. And that, I mean, that's just a necessity if you want to figure out, all right, where do I even get started with how to do this kind of stuff? And there's great books on bushcraft and a lot of that. If you really want to go deep into this stuff, you know, there's lots that I could recommend as far as that goes, like the Ultimate Wilderness Survival Guide by the McPhersons. I mean, there's tons of them that we could really get into, but you know, those are, and in fact, I didn't mention this in the episode also. I did bring my Kindle with me. Now, my Kindle Oasis, of course, is waterproof. I mean, it's basically one of the most rock solid pieces of technology that you could have. And also it doesn't have 10 billion radios on it, thankfully, or antennae. And that has The Art of Shenku on there, along with a lot of other survival books. And I did mention that we had chargers. I had a solar charger there where I could have charged the Kindle. And that's kind of an idea that I have to do with all of that anyway, because I mean, you know, you start tossing books into these packs, into a bug out bag. And I mean, that thing's going to weigh more than you could ever dream of carrying in very, very short order. And even though this, and I think we said this, even though Three Ponds Trail was, I think calling it moderate is pretty fair. We did one called Mount Langdon. That was not moderate. That was like uphill a lot and just ugly. Fun, but ugly. But even on this moderate trail, even when a lot of it is, you know, especially going back to the car, was mainly downhill, right? Those packs, I mean, were just so damned heavy. So to circle back to my point, if you want me, because I got into the Telegram group, started talking about all this other stuff. If you want me to tell you what pack I end up deciding on, I'm happy to update on that. I'll mention it in the Telegram group, but if you want to ask me about it, I will get to it when I decide. And we will put that pack to the test. I mean, that's easy to do. We don't have to actually like go too far to do that kind of testing anyway. But that's something that has to happen. And like, there's a need for improving sleeping conditions to some degree. We talked about that. I'm certainly going to, I mean, this is just something, this is a fun experiment that I think would be great to constantly, you know, update on and update you on if you are interested. So just let me know, email BBS or questions at sovryn.tech.com, or ask about it in the Telegram group if you want. You know, and I'm happy to discuss it. I think I'm going to end up titling this episode, Sovryn Primal Tech. I think that's pretty cool. Oh man. And you know, if you're wondering, like, did Ellen and I consider, like, you know, hey, maybe we should just stay out here and really not go back? I think we would be less than honest if we said anything other than, it crossed our minds. So, but anyway, no, we're here. And of course, we have so much more to do and so much that we want to create, and bring into the world, as it were. I got a lot of exciting things still planned and lined up for 2020 that I can't wait to share with you, and feeling, frankly, very refreshed to dive in and get this stuff done and out to you. And of course, always excited every single week to do Sovryn Tech. So honored, by the way. People have been donating lately. I am really honored by that. You have no idea how much it means to me, how vindicating it is, and how much it helps with keeping the show running and doing lots of other things, including, a lot of this real world testing. I mean, it's very, very helpful. It allows me to, talk about this stuff with you. And anyway, I'm so honored. And I cannot thank all of you enough. But that's enough, I think, for this week. And because admittedly, I need to go lay down after this excursion. I need to go lay down. So that'll wrap it up. And I will be back very shortly with next week's episode of Sovryn Tech. And we'll get into all the good stuff or the not so good stuff. And I'll see all of you on the other side.
Thank you for listening to Sovryn Tech, an Osiris One production. Now go out there and make some trouble.